I'm not here to shit on people who like the Darkling, but I also want to know why you like the Darkling. It's after a certain point. So the Shadow and Bone Netflix adaptation is about to come out in April, and I have had this beautiful box set of the Shadow and Bone trilogy for quite a few years now, and so I decided to not waste the money that I spent on this, because I really would have just kept putting it off unless there was a show to watch it for. And I finally read the Grisha trilogy, or the Shadow and Bone trilogy, or the Grishaverse, whatever it's called. For those who don't know, I did not start my Grishaverse journey with the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I read Six of Crows when I was still in high school, and that was 5 years ago now? Jesus Christ. Apparently I graduated from high school 5 years ago, so yeah. I read Six of Crows when I was, I think, a junior or a senior in high school, and I really, really loved that duology. It's got so many great characters. I love the found family trope in it. The world building in it was amazing, and it was just an overall really fun and really kind of dark, but like light at the same time story. And while there are plenty of dark themes and light themes in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, they are not what I mean when I say that in Six of Crows. I just overall really enjoyed that story a lot, and it just gave me very high expectations for Leigh Bardugo. So with that in mind, I did know that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is not going to be nearly as good as Six of Crows. I did lower my expectations, so I'm not really planning to just completely diss the writing or anything in this trilogy, but there were a few issues that I did have with it, as well as some things that I liked. So I wanted to go ahead and just chat with you guys about my thoughts and feelings on this trilogy before the show comes out. And I watched the trailer for the show a few days ago, and wow, it's amazing. I was really upset when I found out about the like crossover they were doing with SOC and the Grisha trilogy, because I didn't think I just don't see how they're going to mix those storylines. Like, I just don't like it. I don't like the idea. But seeing them all on screen, I'm so hyped. Like, you would think that I was a diehard fan of this trilogy by the way that my heart was, like, bursting watching the trailer. So, I'm really excited to see the adaptation. I think they're going to do a great job with it. But if they do some of the things they did in the book, we're gonna have some problems. So let's get into all my thoughts and feelings. Before we get started, I don't really plan to go into a bunch of spoilers in this video. I'm not gonna try and like go deeply into each plot point, but there will be mild spoilers probably, and I would say just like if you don't want to know anything, if you haven't read the books, which you are a little behind, like why are you waiting as long as I did if you haven't read them already? So if you don't want to know anything, don't watch this video, but I'm trying to be as limited in my information as possible. So let's just start with the things that I liked about this trilogy. The world building, for one thing, was phenomenal. I honestly think that even though I hadn't read the trilogy first, when I read SOC, I got a really good grasp of the world. There's definitely more world building in the trilogy, and that was very helpful for me, but I was not lost. So coming into this, I don't feel like I needed to read this trilogy first before reading the second books. But the trilogy provides so much more context to the world around us, the different countries and nations, and how they view magic and people who wield magic. There was mention of the war and conflicts in these countries when we read the duology, but this trilogy really gives you more information about like the wider world and how everyone is at war with each other. That being said, I wish we could have explored some of these other countries more. Like, we get mention of them and we talk to a few people from those different countries, but I wish we could have traveled to them, because one of the things I didn't like about the trilogy was how stationary we were for a lot of it. So it would have been really cool to explore the world, which we do get to do a little more of in Six of Crows. Leigh Bardugo also created a really interesting magic system that's treated more like a science than just some random stuff that comes out of the ether. I can't really try to explain it to you because my head does not do science, and I'm sure it's like easy enough that a 10-year-old could figure it out, but I just kind of glazed over when people started trying to explain things that I just know don't need an explanation. I don't really question like magic, like, okay, it's magic, we live in a magical world, that's cool, but I appreciate the effort she put into explaining it. Another thing I really liked about this trilogy was the action scenes. Leigh Bardugo is so good at writing action. Shit gets so real in this trilogy sometimes, like, minor spoilers, people getting their arms cut off, and people getting sliced in half, and I'm just like, oh wow. There are plenty of scenes where our characters are facing monsters in the book, and the monsters are pretty gruesome. Like, you know your beloved main character isn't gonna die, but you're just not sure about the other characters. I mean, except for some. You know who's not gonna die, basically, but I was hoping for more deaths, because there's a lot of people I didn't like in these books, but it's okay. We'll get to that in the dislike section. But speaking of characters I did like, there was only one of them, and his name is Nikolai Lansov? I don't remember his name. His name is Nikolai. Again, if you haven't read the books, you probably don't want to be here and hear about stuff that is kind of a spoiler, so leave. Thanks for sticking around this long anyway. It's kind of you to just want to watch this video. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about one of the characters, Nikolai Lansov, who is just a cinnamon roll, although he's not though. He's like, strategic. He is literally the only character in this entire trilogy that I really care about. He is hilarious. He has a lot of great moments. He's really good at banter. He's very smart, very strategic. The main character, Alina, oftentimes comments on how he's always plotting something. So it's really nice when he's on the page because he's just a really good balance of light, but balancing it out with the series because he is someone on a mission. I'm really excited to see his story carrying on in King of Scars because I have no idea where it's going from there. And since it's after Six of Crows, I'm sure the writing is even much stronger in those. Unfortunately, Bardugo didn't really see how special and important Nikolai was to the story because he was out of so much of it, but he just made everything better, and I really liked the political and court intrigue that he brought into it. One of my favorite tropes is court intrigue and political intrigue, so having to see him play this character who's super charming and just schmoozy and just trying to get what he wants and just trying to outsmart everyone around him, I really enjoyed seeing him, and that's why he's just one of my favorite characters. He's so complex. He's way more complex than any of the other characters because they're all pretty cliche, and I think Lee tried to do something with Alina that was more complex, but it just didn't work for me. I just didn't buy it, so, but we'll get into that later. Even the things I hated most about the book, Nikolai somehow makes better. So one of my gripes was that everyone in this, every single man in this book falls in love with Alina or just wants to marry her for some reason, and the only one I didn't mind so much was Nikolai. He was, you know, he was doing it with a purpose. I think he did actually really have feelings for her for some reason, but the bigger aim for him was mostly how it would look optics-wise for the kingdom. So the final thing I want to comment on with things that I liked about this story was the dark circle representation. Our girl Lena, she had some serious eye bags. She had some serious bruises under the eyes going on, and everybody wanted to comment on it. Every book, every chapter, someone is talking about how girl needs to go get some more sleep. And I can relate. I have never felt so seen and understood as a girl who has terrible, terrible dark circles under her eyes. You probably can't see them because I'm wearing makeup. Fuck, you probably can see them because I'm wearing makeup. I don't know how to do makeup at all. But to be poetic about it, my under eyes are like violet blooms in the dying sunset, which means they're bad. I don't believe in sleep. Alina can't sleep, and it takes a toll on both of us. That being said, this is also a con because everyone brings up her dark circles, and it's just more of an excuse for her to talk about how ugly she is and how unattractive and how she's surprised that anyone could ever see anything in her because she's so ugly. So yeah, she's one of those characters. It killed me a little bit inside, but I also felt very seen by her. We can't all love ourselves all the time. Okay, I think that's everything that I liked about the story, so let's go into everything that I didn't like. This is probably the most spoilery the video is gonna get, by the way, so let's start with the plot. I felt like the plot in every single book was pretty much the same every time, which was really frustrating to read, and just, it didn't make for a good time. In Shadow and Bone, Alina discovers her power. She goes somewhere else to kind of learn more about her power. She ends up finding out something that makes her realize that she can't trust the people she's with, and then she goes away. She has to hunt and find an artifact. Then in Siege and Storm, Alina's on the run. She gets back in a place where she realizes she can't trust anybody. She's chasing another powerful artifact. She goes back to the Little Palace, the place where she's learning more about her power. Ambush, she's on the run again. Then Ruin and Rising. Alina is in a place with people she doesn't feel like she can trust. She runs away. She's on the run, chasing an artifact, and big showdown, stuff like that. There's lots of big showdowns in this book. I forgot to mention them for the other two. But you see my point. There's just a lot of the same stuff happening, and I think part of it was just that we end up at the Little Palace a lot, and I think those are my least favorite parts of the book. It was okay in Siege and Storm because Nikolai was there. But before that and after that, I just felt like nothing really happens at the Little Palace. I mean, obviously stuff happens, but I was just very bored. I really enjoyed Siege and Storm the most because we did get to move so much around in the world. We were on a ship, we were in the fold. There's a whole little montage of them traveling through the countryside and stuff to get back to the kingdom. So there's a lot more exploring, there's a lot more fun and adventure going on. But with the other two books, I just feel like there's a lot of sitting in one place, and it gets really, really boring and really repetitive, especially when you don't care about most of the characters. Leigh Bardugo for some reason likes to write it out so that Nikolai doesn't show up in half the books, and we're supposed to be distracted by this like glorious romance going on between her and Mal or between her and the Darkling, and you don't care about either of them because they both suck and you don't want her to end up with either of them. So yeah, the romances. The Darkling's a psychopath. I kind of understood what people saw in him in Shadow and Bone, because obviously he's written that way, that we're supposed to like fall for him a little bit. If you didn't, I applaud you. I don't know how, but I was like, yes, like I can see it. Everyone said how bad the Darkling was before I had read the books, but I didn't think he was that bad at first. I was like, oh, clearly he's just someone who needs love. Why are you guys like trying to shit on people who like the Darkling? I'm not here to shit on people who like the Darkling, but I also want to know why you like the Darkling. It's after a certain point, he's a crazy person and I just don't see it. Then we also have Mal, who is the other primary love interest in this, and I hate him. He is like, I would rather her end up with the Darkling than with Mal. I really don't like Mal. He's always whiny. He's definitely the Gale of these books. He is intimidated by a powerful woman, and I think I respect that he notices that, like, clearly I'm just not right for your kind of life. Like, you're expected to do these great things and I'm just gonna be a guard and I just don't see us working out. So he was a bit realistic in that way, but he was also just such a little bitch. Going even further into the characters, I just did not think the Darkling was a very compelling villain. Another thing that really goes into the repetitiveness of the plot and just not having an overall really great experience with it is just that the villain was so weak. I found the Darkling to be so one-dimensional. I've seen people say that he has a lot of like background and you can really see why he is the way he is, but I don't see it at all. I feel like he's just like another one of the Dr. Drakens or the Dr. Doofenshmirtzes of the world, that they just want world domination but for no reason, and you don't really know why they hate everyone so much. I actually owe Dr. Doofenshmirtz an apology. He was dealing with a lot. I think he had a really troubled childhood and I feel like he was an orphan. I know that he didn't have a stable home life, so just, he's excused. I read up on Dr. Draken's backstory as well, and while he did get like teased because of something he did in college, it wasn't enough to justify the crazy man he became. So my stance on Dr. Draken remains the same, but I do apologize to Dr. Doofenshmirtz because he went through a lot. Like, I know he has mommy issues and stuff, but I didn't understand them because it's not like his mom is the reason that he turned out the way he is. He just seems like someone who was corrupted by being on the earth for a lot of years, and yeah, it just seemed like he was evil for no reason. I honestly thought that there was going to be a new villain that was introduced like halfway through the books, and then they would end up working together, but unfortunately that was not the case, and I was just bored by the stakes in this. Even though he was crazy, he did not really intimidate me as a villain. I was not scared for Alina, especially since, you know, he's kind of in love with her, or whatever you want to call that emotion that he feels towards her. But yeah, I just wasn't impressed. I really wish we could have seen a new evil force introduced, and that way the Darkling could have had a redemption story, because he didn't get that, which I'm glad he didn't get a redemption story really, because there's no redeeming him if it's just going to be him being the entire villain for the entire story. But every time they were like, oh, the Darkling's got this big thing planned, I was like, okay, then just use the cut on him and end this. That was another thing. I was just like, Alina is a coward, and it was really annoying because there were so many opportunities for her to just end it. There are a host of instances where Alina, who has become wiser and she knows more about the Darkling's games, she has these opportunities to just end it all with a little stabby or a little cut, slice, and she doesn't do that. And obviously that has to do with Alina being not an evil person. She's a good person. But Leigh Bardugo was trying to do this thing with Alina's character where they made her seem like she was turning evil or something, and it just was not convincing at all. It was supposed to be that the power that she was getting was going to her head, and she was going to, like, it was going to make her lose control and lose herself. But we never really see that. I feel like that was all worry in her head, and never anything that was actually like concerning that she did. For example, we have to hunt down these powerful artifacts for her to get her power, and she never once actually kills an animal herself, which I liked. I'm glad she didn't, but I was just like, this is a good time to prove that she's actually as bad as she's believed she is, and she never did that. And another good way to prove that she feels like she's losing control of herself is to kill the Darkling, or at least attempt to, which she really doesn't try to do in any sort of effective or meaningful or like ruthless way. And so that was just a really unconvincing plot line that I rolled my eyes at every time she was like, what if I'm going bad? What if I'm just like the Darkling? Because honey, you're not like the Darkling, and you never were like the Darkling. Okay, I know like things are getting a little bit rambly here, I'm sorry. I had a plotted out thing, but we're just destined to never follow it. Basically the whole point of this is Stan Nikolai. He's my king, he's your king, and he's the only one who matters. That being said, why did Leigh Bardugo decide that he was just going to turn into some sort of demon weird thing for the most of the last book? That's why I really didn't like Ruin and Rising, because he had all the potential to be in it and there was no reason to like ditch him, but for some reason she decided to make him a cannibal, human-eating thingamabob. I actually blew through all of my negatives, so I think this video is done. So individually, I gave Shadow and Bone 3 stars, I gave Siege and Storm 3.5 stars, and I gave Ruin and Rising 3 stars as well. I didn't hate these books. I don't feel like I went too harshly on them in that dislike section. They definitely could have been a lot better and a more satisfying series for me, but overall I still enjoy just being back in the Grisham world. I always will adore this world that Leigh Bardugo has built. Even if I'm spending the whole time following around boring characters, at least I get to be in such a beloved world. I think this was Leigh Bardugo's debut work, so honestly that's not terrible for a first trilogy, especially coming out in the early 2000s and when we know how like YA fantasy tends to be sometimes. So you know, for what it is, I really enjoyed it. I think it's going to translate really well to the big screen or the TV screen, whatever. And I'm really excited for the show. Honestly, with the way that the actor who's playing Mal looks, I might become a Mal shipper because he's fine. I know y'all like the Darkling. I personally don't see it. I don't think he's all that attractive. He's got a great beard, I'll give him that. But other than that, it's not for me. But Mal can get it. Only TV Mal, though. I can't stand book Mal. Like, I wish he had died and stayed dead. Ooh, spoilers. Thanks for watching this review if you stuck around to the end, and let me know what you felt about this series in the comments down below. If you loved it, if you hated it, tell me why. I really want to know. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to go give it a thumbs up down there, and if you want to see more of my beautiful dark circle-less face, please feel free to subscribe to my channel as well. I also have social media you can follow if you want to be friends with me on Goodreads, or if you want to follow me on my Bookstagram at LalaLovesLit. The links for all of those are down below. Until next time, have a good day and go worship Nikolai, and that's all I have to say about that. Bye!